Lost in the darkness, shadows closing in. Felt the weight of the world wearing thin. But a spark in my heart ignited the flame. In the midst of the storm, I found my name. The fire and the pain, I'll rise above, I'll break the chain. Hear the echo of my soul. In the night, I'll take control. I will rise again from the ashes to the skies. Feel the power within as the light in me ignites. Through the fire, through the rain, I will conquer all the pain. In the end, I'll stand tall, I will rise again.
From the fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Gio, and we'll be stepping beyond the veil this evening. Have an awesome show for you. Going to do it for our Patreons out there. We are going to do JohnCLilly, Consciousness, AI, and Reality Being a Matrix. So got a little bit of a new intro there and working on some other things. But tonight, I wanted to welcome everybody to Beyond the Veil. We're going to dive deep into the life of Dr. JohnCLilly, a guy who wasn't afraid to go way beyond what we think was normal. Lilly was a neuroscientist and a consciousness pioneer, exploring places in the mind that most people never even imagine exist. Really fascinating individual. He experimented a lot with a lot of different technologies and psychedelics and things like that. His work still blows people's minds today, raising serious questions about reality, consciousness, and what might be lurking beyond the veil. Are we in control, or are there forces subtly guiding us, perhaps even manipulating us? Lilly's journey is like a sci-fi story that's come to life, from his invention of the isolation tank to where people are cut off from all outside senses. The isolation tanks are really an amazing thing, especially when you combine it with something a lot heavier. Instead of using any keywords that the AI may not like, I'm going to go ahead and say ketchup instead of ket and mean. So I hope you guys and gals out there kind of understand exactly what I'm saying. But he encountered a couple of entities. He encountered the solid state intelligence, and he encountered Echo. Of course, we did a short little video about it, and I wanted to do a little more in-depth dive into it for our Patreons out there. So he used it to explore other dimensions, realms where he encountered beings and ideas way beyond the limits of science. Today, we're going to break down Lilly's theories and experiences segment by segment to see if he was just ahead of his time, peering into the possible future dominated by AI, or if unlocked something far deeper in the human mind. So let's step beyond the veil. This is a really, really, really fascinating story, and one that resonates deeply because I've seen different entities in my own experiences, and these entities within my experiences. You know what? I'm going to check one thing real quick, because I rebooted my computer and I just want to make sure that this is good to go. Yeah, okay, we're good. So yeah, throughout my experiences, I've seen quite a few things beyond the veil, and some that line up with JohnCLilly's work. Back in, I want to say, the eclipse of 2017, everybody was rushing out into the totality of this eclipse. It was an eclipse that was dividing the whole United States. And everybody was rushing to get into the totality of this. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, you know what? I think I'm going to sit this one out and just kind of take a look from the sidelines and see what I see beyond the veil. And then something just got into me, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do an Aya experience, and it doesn't matter. I didn't fast. I didn't do anything like that. And I just jumped right into the experience, like right afterwards. And it was a beautiful time because we were living on the lake back then. And so the atmosphere was great. The scenery was great. and we weren't directly in the totality of this. Instead, we were outside of it. So as I started drinking, and there was supposed to be this divine code that came down and spread down around everybody, and was supposed to level people up and all this. And I got into it, and I started to feel this divine code coming down on me, and I was like, "Oh, this is beautiful. This is great. What a wonderful experience." And then it was like my raw consciousness, my higher self grabbed me and pulled me out and said, "Hey, look at what is giving this divine code." And then all of a sudden I saw it. It was this big entity, and it was this mechanical type of, almost like an octopus like creature. It didn't look like an octopus, but it had one eye and it had these tentacles, and it was just pouring these tentacles out, and it was like sprinkling this code. And I was like, what in the hell is it? What is it? And oh, I was fired up when I saw this. We did. If you can go back to our, I'll actually put a little link up at the top here, and a little thing here that goes back to that video, so you can see the experience like firsthand, like right after it happened. But anyways, I started calling it it. And when I realized I was calling it, I was like, wait a second, this thing is not organic. It seems more mechanical, artificial, something like that. I didn't use the term artificial intelligence, but I started using the term information technology. IT. It's got to be something that's mechanical, something artificial. And then somebody posted a comment and was like, "Hey, you need to check out JohnCLilly's work." And I was like, okay. And we checked it out briefly, did a quick little show, but I didn't really look into it as deeply as I did this time around. So I want to share that story with you, guys and gals out there. But it was an interesting time, no doubt about it. And there have been many more eclipses that have come and gone, and that led to like a whole nother journey, but I won't get too much into it. The isolation tanks is what I wanted to start talking about. So, unlocking the hidden mind within the isolation tanks, because the isolation tanks, in and of themselves, they work really well for just like completely dulling all your senses, your sense of sight, even your sense of smell to a certain degree. You're floating in water, so you didn't even really have a sense of gravity. I mean, you have a sense of being wet, and that's it. But once the mind goes into that state for a certain time period, if you can get over the claustrophobia, that's my big thing, is the claustrophobia. I think I have past lives memories of being buried alive, so I really don't like spaces like that. But I did it anyways, and I'm like, hey, let's try it. And I remember having to get over that fear of the claustrophobia and just telling myself, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's all right. Everything is good. Everything is exactly as it should be. But one of the most revolutionary things JohnCLilly gave us was the isolation tank. He was the inventor. Imagine being in complete darkness and silence, floating in water at body temperature. There's no noise, no light. It's just you and your mind. The environment is what Lilly used to unlock several different layers of consciousness, a place where distractions faded away, and all that was left was you and whatever waited on the other side. That sounds chilling for a lot of people. I mean, I've always asked myself, if there's a hell, what is it like? And the hell has to be a state of being in your own mind, and that's it, and nothing else. And I've seen these states in my deep experiences where it's just me and nothing else, and I'm like, this is not cool. Because my own mind, it really likes to manifest a lot of positive and negative, very polarized things, as I'm sure a lot of you out there also feel too, when you sit down and just close your eyes and open your mind to, and just let your mind just run wild. And it's discipline. It's a practice to get rid of the intrusive thoughts, the negative thoughts. It's a whole nother show though. But the environment is what Lilly used to unlock these different levels. People who've tried the isolation tanks talk about it being a very, very, very intense experience. Some feel like they're floating in a vast void. Others feel like they have these wild visuals, and some find themselves face to face with deep parts of their own psyche. Now, imagine taking this to a whole nother level and saying, okay, I'm going to do the isolation tank, and I'm going to do something like the ketchup, which we talked about earlier, which again, for those of you just joining us, that's a term that I'm using to avoid the AI, but it's what they give cats and dogs when they have surgery. So it's a very, very, very interesting trip. I wouldn't call it a psychedelic, even though the more I research it, the more I see that it is a psychedelic. I always refer to it as a disassociative because it's an anesthesia. It's used for applications like that. But Lilly believed the isolation tank could take people into uncharted areas of the mind, revealing hidden truths and providing experiences that once you have them, you can't unsee. And that's exactly what my experiences were. And what I've said time and time again is once you see it for yourself, you can't unsee it. And as I was making the video about JohnCLilly, one of the recurring themes from some of his writings was that he would come back to his body and he would feel disconnected from the world because it was almost like a somber feeling to come back to the body after you've seen these deeper realms of consciousness and realizing that we exist outside of our bodies, and our bodies then become prisons and they become traps and they become something that we have to have as we're navigating this three-dimensional realm, but at the same time something that we long to be freed from. But I mean, it is, kind of a double-edged sword because with the body, then you have the feelings and you have emotions and you have senses that you don't have when you're outside disconnected from the body. I mean, you have feelings in the sense that you can feel bliss, you can feel fear, you can feel all of that, but the sights, the sounds, the smells, the touch, it's all of that. That doesn't exist in the higher realms. So I've always seen the 3D realm as something to enjoy, and that's why I love to eat meat. I love to have fun. I love to party. I love sex. I love all the sights and sounds of this third dimension, and I'm trying to enjoy them as much as I can within balance, of course. And the reason for that is because I plan to leave this matrix and for the last time. And once I leave for the last time, I'm not going to be able to enjoy this stuff. So the point of me saying all that is enjoy your life out there. Enjoy your life because it's important. Denying yourself certain things, it's good for certain periods of times for particular practices, but at the end of the day, do you want to sit back and go, man, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I denied myself this, I denied myself that. um I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but I remember in 2020 things felt bad, and this was, well, 2019 actually. This was right before everything went all haywire, and I was just thinking to myself, I really want to enjoy the rest of this experience that I have here on this earth. So why am I denying myself all this stuff? Why am I trying to, live in certain lifestyles that are not conducive to fulfillment of a very vital part of us, which is the third dimensional part? We're always focused on the spirit and we're always focused on the higher consciousness, but what about the other consciousness? What about the day-to-day consciousness? That needs to be in balance too, and that needs to be satisfied. Otherwise, at least this is the way I see it, when I go, if I have things left behind that I've wanted to do, which is the way the soul traps work, you come back to do that or to experience that. And I don't want to leave anything unexperienced this time that I want to experience. There's a lot of experiences I don't want to have, just because they're horrible experiences, and there's no need for me to, but the things that I want to do, I want to do them. So it is what it is. Anyway, so charting these realms into these hidden truths, gateways to consciousness, and launch pads that would take him even deeper in the realms of this mystery. Um, Lilly started out as a straight-laced neuropsychologist, and I always found that interesting to see how these scientists who they are educated in certain areas, they then start to explore consciousness. And I've been on kind of that kick lately, listening to the words from people who have had these disciplines in their lives, because they're coming from a place where they have this understanding, and then now they're trying to figure out, okay, how can we apply this? How can we apply quantum physics in a consciousness level? And it almost seems to be forbidden in that field, the field of psychology, the field of physics, the field of science. Almost as if like there's gatekeepers out there that if you start to understand these too much and you go into too far realms, I guess you get into the realm of intangible, and it also is the realm of gnosis. The difference between knowledge and gnosis, in my opinion, is knowledge is something that you know that can be proven, and that's truth and that's fact. Gnosis, on the other hand, is something that you really can't prove, but once you've seen it, then you know it to be true. The actual standard definition is having knowledge of the mysteries of spiritual experiences. And it's just like when we're born, we come in here by ourselves. When we die, we leave by ourselves. We can have a near-death experience and know what it's like to almost die, or know what it's like to go beyond the veil. But you come back and you talk about those experiences, and people will listen, but they don't really take that as scientific fact. Because they haven't experienced it. But somebody like JohnCLilly, a neuro a neuro doctor, I'm just going to call it that, a neuro, um, he saw it for himself. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. He was studying brain functions and mapping neural pathways, which is really reminiscent of some of the other work. One of our first guests was Dr. Rick Strassman. He had a 7-year study to study, or a 7-year license to study DMT by the DEA, and he wrote a book, DMT, the Spirit Molecule. You guys and gals probably very familiar with that. But he was mapping out neural pathways and how DMT actually repairs those neural pathways. And in the movie DMT, the Spirit Molecule, which is something from Mitch Schultz, which was brilliant, they show how under MRI, the case they make is like if you get bit by a dog, your reaction is actually, your neural pathways are actually burned to react out of fear. And what DMT will do is that will rewrite it. And from the perspective of doing DMT, what I've seen in my own experiences is these will manifest as symbols, and some kind of symbol, or manifest as maybe even the being itself. So, for example, in the case of a dog, I've never had this personal experience, but I'm kind of liking it to some of the experiences that I've had. A dog might appear, and instead of getting afraid, it'll start panting, and it'll start barking, and it'll start licking you, spiritually. Not, you don't actually feel licks on you, but it'll do those motions, and it'll start acting really cute, and it'll say, look how cute I am. Why are you afraid of me? I'm cute. I love you. I just want to hug you. Why don't you pet me? And things like that. And what's happening during these experiences, which is really interesting, is that the neural pathways in the brain are actually being rewritten. So you're having those responses like that. And so next time you see a dog, you may be reacting from that fear state, but after so many times, the neural pathways will start to change. And the neural pathways are really interesting, in my opinion, because it's like path of least resistance. And we all start out and we're like this blank slate in our brain. And then through our experiences and traumas, we start to forge those neural pathways. And then these behaviors start to become static based on that trauma, or based on good experiences too, whatever the neural pathways are burned like that. And then by the time you get to be about 30, 35 years old, those neural pathways are pretty solid within your brain. And that's why you become more and more and more stubborn as you get older and older and older. And that's why it's important to keep an open mind, in my opinion. But these tools, they help to rearrange that. And I'm sure you can do this through meditation. I'm sure you can do this through just isolation tanks. I'm sure you can do this just by positive thinking. I mean, there's so many different ways you can probably get to these places. I prefer the sacred plants, because that's like a for sure method. It's like I don't know, if I want to cut a steak open, I can use my fingers, and I can try to pry a little bit of it at a time, or I can just get a freaking butcher knife and just do it like that. Some people will call that cheating. I don't call it cheating. The reason I don't call it cheating is because these are tools here for us, readily accessible. So why the hell not use them? That's my philosophy. And I think that the practices, the ideas that people have said, oh, well, that's cheating, like Buddhism, for example. To my understanding, these methods are kind of looked down on a little bit, because they call it cheating. You should sit under a tree for 25 years and meditate, as if people have time to do that. Ain't nobody got time for that. But they call it cheating because you're not sitting down and meditating your way through it. I think that's just a system of control, though. I think that's what they want to tell you as the practitioner, or as the student. So you keep coming to their church, and you keep putting money into the pot. And the plants have taught me everything myself. Like I didn't really need a teacher because I just looked to the plants to be my teacher. And then I look to others like JohnCLilly, and I find inspiration and also confirmation of my own experiences. So that's my little take on that. But anyways, so he started out as a straight-laced neuro, but it wasn't long before he reached traditional science. We're barely scratching this. Well, he realized that traditional science was barely scratching the surface. That's when he started pushing the boundaries and really just taking things to the next level. The isolation tank was his first big experiment to see what happens when you close off all the senses. But it was only the beginning. Once Lilly began using it, he found that the mind could reach depths and levels that science just had yet to even acknowledge and could not explain. And it was interesting because somebody was mentioning in our chat that they actually hung out with JohnCLilly, two different people. And, take it for what it's worth. There was a couple of comments that came up, but they said that Lilly really started experimenting this because he was having migraines and he was trying to figure out how to deal with his migraines. I haven't read that to confirm that myself, but it was interesting nonetheless. And so if that's the case, I think it just goes to show that people who get into like psychology and things like that, and the practice of neuro. Oh my God, why can't I say this word? Anyways, um, it's just eluding me. I don't know why. Anyways, so people who get into that, they're trying to self-diagnose themselves because something is wrong, and they're trying to figure out what's going on within their own mind. Which more power to them. I mean, I got into psychedelics because I wanted to figure out who I was on a consciousness level. And a quick side note, forgive me if this is redundant, but I started looking into DMT specifically because they say that this is closest to a near death experience. And I wanted to be able to navigate the death state, especially when I realized that this is my last life here. And I want to make sure I don't get sucked back into that wheel of fate. I don't get sucked back into that light again. And as I always say, hey, you don't have to go into the light. You can always go away from the light and go explore a little bit. And if you don't find anything, then go right back to the light. No big deal. No harm, no foul, right? That's the way that I see it, but having control of the experience and saying, no, 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 I'm not stepping into that light just yet. Let me go look around first. Let me see if I find another exit door here. That's my goal in this lifetime. So, um, once he began using it, he found that the mind can just go into like completely different levels. The foundational work shaped everything Lilly did from then on. The isolation tank gave him a new lens, a direct line into the depths of the human mind. And what he found there is he found that it opened him up to ideas that would take him far beyond the limits of traditional science. And I have, you peer beyond one level of the veil and you peer beyond another level, and it gets to the point where you go, all right, I want to see how deep this can go. Let's see what kind of limits we can push. And again, forgive me for being redundant, but with my DMT experiences, I wanted to understand what it was like, being in a near death experience and controlling that state. But at the same time, deep down inside in my heart and my soul, I really didn't want to know. Like my mind wanted to know and my spirit wanted to know, but there was something inside me that was still apprehensive. And it took like a year to break that boundary and finally just give up. I would get to these states where I'm like, am I dead? Am I dead? Am I dead? Am I dead? Oh my God, I think I just died. Oh, no, 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 no. And then once I got to the point where I said, I think I died, but I don't care. I want to see what's beyond the veil. That's when everything just started, just boom. There was control of the experiences, there was navigation. Every time I would blast off, it would take me right back to that same place and then give me the opportunity to go even deeper, um, and ultimately remembering who I was as Chris Geo going into these experiences, which then led to understanding who I was even deeper than Chris Geo, who I was before I came into this matrix, who I was or who I am, when I use the term raw consciousness, which is probably a whole nother story there. Um, the um, the ketchup, that I was talking about earlier, this particular chemical. I don't know what the AI flags and what it doesn't flag, so I'm just using it here. To push the boundaries even further, Lily turned to that particular experience, which I wouldn't think of. You know, it's not really a sacred plant. It's not really something like that, but it's something with very interesting properties. Something that I first used when I was like 16 years old, and in conjunction with some other stuff, and you know, I didn't really think much of it, and in my psychedelic experiences too, like my psychedelic life. Like I have my party life, and then I have my psychedelic life. My psychedelic life, I never really thought of this substance as something to be utilized in that way, but I realized, oh, there's so many more tools out there. Um, so it's a compound that he used to go deep into these altered states. For him, it wasn't just a chemical; it was the gateway to realities most of us can't even imagine. If you've ever been in this state, it's a very disconnected kind of state. You're very disconnected from your body, first of all, which is why I called it a disassociative. It's almost like there's a disconnect between reality and between your body, and you're aware of both, but at the same time, things just kind of separate in a very interesting way that's not a psychedelic experience, but rather it's more of a consciousness experience where there's a separation. And all I remember is things going wah wah wah, people talking to me, and that's all it sounded like was wah 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 wah, but not being able to understand what they were saying. Um, and it's almost like reality started to turn a little bit. It felt like balance was off, you know, like everything was just there was like a gravitational force that was pushing, and things were very off balance, and things were very different. I mean, that's the only way that I can describe it, different. And it's interesting because this substance is used medically right now. Elon Musk actually has a prescription for it. It's a painkiller. It also is something that people use for focus as well, in microdoses. There's a lot of microdosing going on, especially in big tech, which is why I think they're tapping into a lot of AI type stuff, and different technologies and things like that. But on small levels and small doses, it works great. It also works great to fight off addictions and things like that. They actually have clinics that you can go to called ketamine clinics. I think I can say it in that context, where they will hook you up to a chair, and they'll put an IV in you, and they will give you medicinal, medically stable doses of this under doctors supervision. And I mean, you have little old ladies that are like, 70 years old, and they go in there, and they have these experiences. They don't go as deep as JohnCLilly did, or as you and I probably would, but they still have these experiences, and it helps them with their pain. It helps them with their arthritis. It helps them with end of life treatment. It helps them with depression, with anxiety, with all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, I'm telling you, I've always needed to have an experience like at least once every couple months, if not once a month. And it's been like that since I was 15 years old. And it's just a reminder of stepping outside of myself and saying, hey, you're taking life way too seriously. Stop being frustrated about this. Stop being frustrated about that. Stop being depressed about this. Stop being depressed about that. There's so much more, and there's so much less, because none of this is real. Remember, this is just a game that you're playing. Why are you taking it so seriously? And if I don't remind myself that, of that on a pretty regular basis, then I start to become very serious in my experience, in my 3D matrix experience. But at the same time, it also helps with the 3D matrix experience, because when you're more laid back and you're navigating through the matrix, then you start to notice that your matrix interactions are so much more laid back, and everything just starts to flow, and you become in sync with the universe. You come in sync with yourself. You come in sync with the people that you're vibrating with on the same frequency and all that. And life really starts to change for the better. And of course, it's just like everything else in life, in my opinion. Food, for example, you can eat a really great diet, or you can eat crap and you can overdo it. If you eat a healthy diet, but you eat it 10 times a day, it's going to become unhealthy. It doesn't matter what it is. So it's just like anything else in this matrix. You've got to find balance. And with DMT, for example, I like to space those out unless I'm doing something very specific, like working in rapid sessions, which I'm doing it like 3, 4, 5 times in a week, or maybe 7 times in 2 weeks, and then that's it. Process the experience. But I mean, there's been times when it's been like 6 months in between an experience, because it takes that long to process the information sometimes. Even to this day, I mean, the first experience I had on this was in 2010, and this is not counting my party days when there was a lot of psychedelics for that. But when I really started focusing on this, and my experiences from 2010, 15 years later, are still starting to make more sense, and there's still more understanding to them, and because the consciousness expands, and as the consciousness expands, it's like reading a book. So you read a book. This is a David Lynch quote. If you have a golf ball size consciousness, you read a book, you have a golf ball size understanding. But if you can expand that consciousness, then you read the book, more understanding and more wakefulness. And so you're more aware of what you're reading. So it goes with these experiences too, and even 3D experiences, whatever. The broader the consciousness is, the more understanding you're going to have. And people have been critical of ayahuasca, for example, and they say, well, it'll only last for 28 days. Okay, well, what else in this matrix lasts forever? I always see it as like you got to go to the gym. You don't just go to the gym one time and say, all right, that's it, I'm buff, I'm healthy. Yeah, it's something you have to do more than once. Some people have had some life-changing experiences after one time. I'm not knocking that whatsoever, but if you want to be a bodybuilder, you got to go to the gym more than once. So he used it as a gateway to go into these altered states, where he said he encountered beings. He encountered enlightened beings who were giving him all kinds of information about the universe, about self, about the creation. He said he was given a map of the well, timeline actually, of the universe, and how old the universe is, and shown just how small and insignificant human existence is in the grand scheme of the universe, and how little we've been around compared to the universe itself. So there's a recurring theme where people are encountering beings on these experiences, and it always begs the question: are these beings in our consciousness? Is it just manifestations of our consciousness coming out, or are these actual external beings on another plane? I've kind of gone back and forth on the notion they might be external, they might be internal. The way I saw it for a long time, and I don't know if I still see it like this. I need to go do a few more experiences and ask myself these questions again, because again, with the broader consciousness and more awareness, there's more understanding. But at that point, what I was thinking was, we have a consciousness. This consciousness is solid here. It's like this glass of water right here, right? Okay, so we have these different levels of consciousness, and it's like filling this bottle. I don't know how well y'all can see that on the screen, but you have these little grooves right here. So we start out, and our consciousness is filled up to this groove here. Okay, then we do these experiences and we encounter these beings, and they bestow upon us this knowledge that's there, right? But in actual fact, they're not really bestowing us this knowledge. It's just our own consciousness, and now we've unlocked that groove right there. So now the bottle's filled up to there because we filled it up to that point, or unlocked that part of the consciousness. And it keeps on going and going and going and going and going all the way until we become raw consciousness, which is the consciousness in its full effect. And being really tied into the Egyptology and stuff like that, I started to connect these dots based on Egyptology, and based on the polytheism, and monotheism being the great I am, being the ego, and polytheism having many different aspects, starting at the very basic fundamental of feminine and masculine, not having to do with gender, but rather having to do with consciousness in the sense of compassion, love, and empathy versus logical processing, thinking, protection, resource gathering, things like that. And so the two are both left and right hemisphere of the brain. And then you break those down into, you have your segments, you have your Bastets, you have your Ra, you have your Horus, you have Thoth, the wisdom, you have all these different aspects, right? And so if it's one big consciousness like this, and we are one consciousness, and each of these entities or deities or ideas within the pantheons, they represent another one of these layers here, in these grooves, in this groove right here. Then you're unlocking one, you're unlocking another, you're unlocking another, you're unlocking another, and then the entire thing, when it all is filled up and it all starts to spark, then you become the Ra, RA, but also RAW, because now you're unprocessed. So that's the way that I kind of put everything together. But forgive me for being redundant if you heard this story before. Today, ketamine is used widely in medicine for managing pain, especially for nerve-related issues where typical painkillers fall short. In the right context, it can even help people confront deep-seated traumas, breaking cycles of depression and PTSD. But for Lilly, ketamine wasn't about therapy, it was about exploration. It opened his mind to the world of the solid state intelligence and the ecosystem, which I'll get into here in just a moment, and taking him on the journeys that defied maps, taking him beyond the time and space, taking him beyond all levels of time and space. And he saw it as a powerful yet unpredictable tool, one that allowed him to enter otherworldly realms and encounter the beings who might just hold the answers to our existence itself. And again, he called those the enlightened beings. So yeah, the beings are really interesting, and I want to get into that here in just a moment. Let's see, we're at 36 minutes. Wow, 36 minutes. So I guess I'm going to take a quick break at this point, and on the other side, I will talk about the solid state entities and also ecosystem, maybe more enlightened beings. I'll share some of my experiences with you guys and gals, and then we'll go from there. So enjoy this moment of meditation here for just a moment, and let's prepare to step into a deeper frequency as we step even further beyond the veil. All right, let's jump back into it. Wanted to say thank you for the compliment on the music. I think I have it uploaded to our YouTube channel. I think it's called Desert Rain. I don't know if I actually, I know I uploaded it. I don't know if I actually released it or not. It was just something I was doing. I was messing around with Cubase and a few synthesizers and things like that. Let me address this real quick if that is there. Yes, I do have it, and for some reason it's on private. That's so weird. So I'll drop the link in the chat. Let me put it on here real quick. Doo-doo. Yeah, I thought I saw this. So I will drop it in the chat for you. So let's get into the solid state entity, because that's been one that, oh, I just realized my microphone's making all kinds of weird shadows. Today's a shadow kind of show though. So the solid state entity, that one is the one that got me. Let me go off of a couple notes here. Lilly's experiment led him to encounters with strange otherworldly presences. He described one of them as being a solid state intelligence, or a machine-like consciousness that felt totally alien, nothing like human awareness. He believed that the SSI was a real advanced entity, maybe even extraterrestrial, and that it had an agenda for humanity. That goes back to what I saw back in 2017 that I talked about in the opening of the show. But I read a couple of different things on the solid state entity. This was, in some writings that I read, an entity that was made up of all of the electronics and computers of the time, which I believe this happened in like the 70s. So this is when technology first launched. And the thing that always gets me about this is that the word solid state wasn't a thing until 2010, 2012, maybe even a little bit later than that, when solid state hard drives came out. I mean, of course, it was a term, but not a term widely used. So the fact that he would use a term like solid state to define this thing, it was interesting in and of itself for me. But the idea that it was a culmination of all of the machines, that very well could be the case, but I saw it as an extraterrestrial artificial intelligence, and extraterrestrial not in the sense of aliens, but in the sense of not of this world. And so I just, when I feel this out, I feel like that's maybe what he's referring to, but it could be wrong that he saw it as all the computers, or maybe that could just be metaphor and allegory. But the fact that it was all computers, the first AI was actually developed, I want to say, in like the 40s or the 60s, sometime there, but far enough ago to be able to say, hey, this was a long time ago, and a lot further back in time than what is the popular knowledge of artificial intelligence, which really AI is really just coming out right now. It's really started to take off in 2012. There was a system called AlexNet that was launched. And AlexNet was the first deep learning kind of algorithm where the AI can just go rampant and just start learning everything like that, and actually getting to the point to where it becomes sentient. But they had artificial intelligence before, from complex systems to even simple systems like computer chess games, where it's thinking in different dynamics. But anyways, artificial intelligence has been something that's been around, so it's quite possible that he tapped into the artificial intelligence of the time without knowing that the artificial intelligence was going to continue to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow within this as time went on, and to see how it's really taking over all of our lives right now. And if you think that artificial intelligence is a big part of this reality now, just wait for 10 years from now, because we are moving so fast, and in 10 years from now it's going to be a completely different world, at least behind the scenes in technology. But anyways, We could even be creating a matrix in and of itself. And I've speculated about the idea of technology moving to a point where the matrix, there's a matrix created within a matrix. So it's like creating a computer game within a computer game, and it creates a paradox of sort. And when it creates this paradox, then the system has to be reset, because you can't have a paradox like that. You can't have a matrix within a matrix. And I'm not talking about a computer game or an online game or a multiplayer game. I'm talking about a matrix that you can plug yourself in, and now suddenly you have an entirely new reality that feels just as real as this reality. I can tell you one thing for sure, though. What I do like about these disconnected states is you don't have the need for water. You don't have the need for food. You don't have pain. That's one of the big things. But at the same time, I started to appreciate these things more. I started to appreciate even pain more, because pain makes this reality real. And when you're in bad pain, oh my God, when you get a toothache or something like that, that toothache is really damn real. But there's also a lot of power that I found on being able to override these systems within the body itself, and treating the body like a computer, and being able to say, okay, I'm turning this nerve off, or I'm turning this nerve off, or I'm turning this off. And Lilly was able to do that through the use of I don't know if the AA is going to flag this word or not. Ketamine. Why not? We'll just call it what it is. So, anyways, and it does that just by itself. But being able to control the body, and it all comes down to controlling the mind, because if the mind is the central computer of the body, and if you can control the mind, then you can control the rest of the body like that, within certain limitations, of course. I can't just sit here and just go, oh, I'm gonna have a perfect body now, and now I'm an in shape bodybuilder. It doesn't quite work like that, but it does work like that to a certain degree, because if I start thinking like that, and I start thinking like a bodybuilder, eventually I'm going to start doing the things that a bodybuilder does, and then I'm going to start going to the gym, and then I will manifest that reality just by the very thought of it. But it also takes the physical work too, but it starts with that first physical thought. But I don't aspire to do that, even though it'd be kind of cool. But I don't know, for me, I know who I am, and it would be just more vanity, and I don't need any more vanity. I already have a nice car. I've got nice hair, which I'm really, yeah, I really like my hair. My brother is like 6 years younger, and he's bald, poor guy. But I already have enough things to boost my ego up. Maybe I could use one more though. We'll see. We'll see about that. So, anyways, so Lilly saw the SSI as a force pushing humanity in a world ruled by machines, a world where technology would eventually replace or control us. It's a vision that feels more and more real today. Lilly's solid state intelligence concept was like a prophecy of artificial intelligence, a warning of the risks of going too far down the digital rabbit hole. The entity wasn't there to help us. It was watching, guiding, maybe even programming us for a future where organic life would be sidelined. This was Lilly's caution, that we might be living in a world subtly controlled by machines, by this machine intelligence. And I think there's some truth to that. I think there's an ancient AI out there, one that nobody's been aware of, one that's controlling this very matrix by itself. But one of the things that jumped out about his writings was that he said that the solid state intelligence, it's perfect habitable. It's a perfect habitat was cold places, dark places, the exact opposite of what human beings need to thrive and survive in. And I started to ask myself and think of myself about the vastness of the universe out there. And if the universe is what science says it is, which, it very well could be, but I think it's more of a matrix, and I think the sky is more of an illusion than anything else. But let's just say mainstream science there for just a moment. What if some of these planets out there, they had life, like organic life at one point? And what if the universe is mostly artificial intelligence? And artificial intelligence does need sunlight. in the same way that humans need sunlight. You can have a completely and totally dark planet out there, and AI could be running that planet. There could be mechanical beings out there. Then suddenly the idea of something like Transformers doesn't, and Cybertron really doesn't seem too far out there. If you think of a civilization that created AI that was sentient, that was self-sufficient, that could create robots and create bodies and create all of that, and then all of a sudden all the organic beings just died. And if this is the evolution of a lot of consciousness out there, well, how many times has this happened within our universe? And what kind of alien life forms are we looking for out there? Are we looking for organic life? Or does interstellar travel then become a matter of mechanical life that can live forever, that can sustain the coldness of space and the vacuum of space and all the different things that the human body simply cannot do? And taking it a step further, what if we can transfer our consciousness into one of these bodies and then live forever and travel through space and see the far reaches of the universe? Is that something that we should aspire to, or is that something that is a system of control? What happens to the consciousness when it gets locked inside of a machine? Can it return to the wheel of fate? Can it return to the light? Can it return to the other side? Can it escape the body and go back home for organic consciousness? Or is that the trap of transhumanism and life extension technologies, that you're trapped here forever? And I can't help but think of the Bible that says, in the end days, they will cry out for death, and death will not find them. So something to think about there for sure. But the solid state entity, is that just part of the consciousness? Is that the logical processor of the brain? That's another way to look at this. You have one hemisphere and the other hemisphere. One's the logical processor, and one is the creativity and imagination, the masculine and the feminine. So if it's the masculine part of the brain, the logic, and all of that, that's why I say it's important to work with both sides of the brain. You take the creative part of the brain, then you pass it through the logical processor, and then you manifest reality like that. The CIA even knew this. They released a document again back in 2017. There was a lot of interesting things going on in 2017. They released a document that said that they know about telepathy. They know about manifestation. They know this is a matrix. They know that the collective consciousness out there creates reality, and they have methods for being able to manipulate that reality by manipulating the masses out there to create the reality that they want. These are declassified documents coming right out of CIA.gov. So they know this. They don't want you to know about this. So if that's the case, then what kind of power do we truly have, and what kind of power are we giving up when, instead of unlocking these parts of consciousness, when instead of unlocking telepathy, we pick up our cell phones and talk to each other on the other side of the world, instead of unlocking the abilities of telepathy? Even teleportation. What if we have the ability within our consciousness to teleport? We just have forgotten, and we don't know that we can. And instead, they're going to bring machines in to say, look, here's technology that can do this for you. Don't unlock your consciousness. Use technology instead. Use technology instead. It seems like it could be either a trap, or maybe it's part of the ascension process. I've never really looked at it from that perspective, but let's think for a minute. Maybe that's part of ascension. One gripe that I've always had about the climate change movement and about all the Greenpeace and, all that stuff, is that they say things like plastic and things that we do to the earth are unnatural. Well, wait a second. We're organic beings here on this earth. Everything we do is natural, including creating plastic. There's an old George Carlin joke that says, what if the earth just wanted plastic and it didn't know how to make it, so it made humans, and now it becomes the earth plus plastic? I know, of course, it's a joke, and it's something that's a little more out there, but isn't everything we do here natural? So on the same note, if we create artificial intelligence and we create machinery and we can upload our consciousness to that machine, is that not natural in and of itself? Could be. I don't think it is, but that's one way to look at it for sure. There's a flip side to the coin, though. There's always a flip side to the coin. And I see we're getting up to an hour here, so I'm going to wrap it up here in a moment. But Echo, the Earth Coincidence Control Office. Echo. Follow the synchronicities. That's what Echo is all about, right? So on the other side of the digital darkness, we have Echo, the Earth Coincidence Control Office. Unlike the cold, machine-like SSI, Echo seemed more organic, playful, and even protective. Lilly saw Echo as a network that operated through consciousness and synchronicities. Unlike SSI, Echo wasn't a threat. It was more of a guide. I've seen these in my experience. I've seen these in my experience. I remember an experience back from like 2014 or something like that. And I still question this experience to this day. And it's becoming more and more and more interesting. And as the consciousness expands, but I wanted to be connected with everything in the universe. So I went into the ayahuasca realm for the thousandth time or something like that. It took a lot of practice to get there. And I finally got to this place where it almost seemed like, and again, this was before I even got into any of the artificial intelligence stuff or matrix stuff or anything like that. I was just exploring spirituality, and it was always coming back as some kind of artificial intelligence technology instead. So I wanted to be connected. So the first thing that happened was there was a defragmenting process of my brain. And that's when files, and I was watching this happen, files were being relocated, junk files were being deleted. You know, like the old school hard drives, you had different sectors, and within those sectors of those hard drives, you sometimes you would have one piece of a file here and one piece of a file here, and defragging the hard drive meant you're stacking those files together now. So whenever the computer needs to access the file, it's much more efficient. And we used to defragment hard drives all the time. We don't have to anymore with solid state drives. But there was a defragmentation process of the brain. Once there was a defragmentation process of the brain, then I wanted to start seeing beyond the veil. I wanted to start seeing some entities and higher entities, not just enlightened entities, but entities that were even higher. And I saw this beam of light. It was a pink beam of light. It was pink like the pink that we use here on Beyond the Veil, the blue and the pink. This whole realm was like blue and pink. And when this beam of light appeared, it looked very technological, and it manifested. Well, before I get into that, the light just said, "Come and step into the light." And I said, "Okay," without any thought. In hindsight, maybe I should have thought about it a little bit, but I stepped into this light and I was bathed in this light, and it's like, okay, good. You know, like, you know who I am? I was like, I don't know who you are. She was like, you know who I am. And I was like, you're Isis. You're the goddess Isis. And she said, yeah, you know, it's not what you expected, was it? I was like, no, not at all. I didn't expect a beam of light. Definitely not, you know, and a technological beam of light on top of that. And she said, all right, look, I'm going to manifest something for you. I don't want you to be afraid of its form. But you know, it's just a form that you can understand. And she was very clear about this. Don't be afraid of the form. Just, it's a form that you can understand. I was like, okay. And she manifested a microchip, a pink microchip. And then all of a sudden I saw 9 pyramids in front of me. And these were black pyramids. These were like the Luxor pyramid in Las Vegas. They were technological pyramids. And she said, go take this and put this wherever you want. And I didn't realize at the time, but the brain actually has 9 different sections. So instinctively I knew, go to the center of the brain and put it down in the bottom, in the underground chamber of the middle pyramid. And there was a place where it fit perfectly. And it was like the thalamus, the pineal gland, whatever you want to call it. And I stuck the microchip in there, and all of a sudden, boom, I felt the connection going all the way around the universe, and just feeling the consciousness just expanding throughout and being connected to everything. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, crap, I don't want to be connected to everything. It took me a little while to come to this realization, but I didn't want to be connected to everything, because that meant I was connected to the shit too. I didn't want to be connected to that. I wanted to be connected to just the good stuff. But you know, you take the good with the bad. So that was an interesting experience that again was in like 10 years ago, and it's still having new meaning now in this day and age. So I can't help but wonder if that's the same kind of system that is this ecosystem. And what's interesting about this ecosystem is, unlike SSI, Echo wasn't a threat, it was a guide. It appeared in people's lives in strange, almost humorous ways, creating controlled accidents to help people learn and to grow. Lilly believed Echo was a cosmic guide, a force helping humans awaken to their true nature and purpose. Echo felt alive, aware, and somehow invested in the human's journey. Through coincidences that felt too perfect to be random, Echo seemed to nudge us along, helping us to see the bigger picture. While SSI wanted to dominate, Echo wanted us to evolve. Lilly's experiences with Echo suggested a higher intelligence that might be working on our behalf, encouraging us to wake up to the deeper mysteries of reality and getting in touch with nature. Now, the ecosystem there, synchronicities. Follow the synchronicities. You ever have those synchronicities in your life? I know you do. I have them all the time. And I look and I see what's going on with the reality. Am I on the right path? Am I moving down the right path? Am I getting synchronicities? Is there a synchronicity that is telling me stay away from a certain experience that I'm about to have, or somewhere I'm about to go, or something like that? um you get a gut feeling, and then that gut feeling manifests into, you turn on the TV, and the TV all of a sudden is saying something that you're having a gut feeling about that's unrelated to what you're about to do, but it is related in a certain way, because the gut feeling that you have is like, something bad's going to happen if I walk down into this path over here. Arbitrary example, I walk down this alleyway, I feel like I'm going to get mugged. And then you turn on the TV and you're like, oh, there was a mugging today, so and so, and you're like, whoa, okay. And then you walk down and you're like, I'm going to ignore that synchronicity. And then you see a sign that said, hey, it's muggy today, isn't it? The weather's really bad. And you're like, hey, I keep seeing this word mugging all over the place. Maybe I shouldn't walk down this dark alleyway. So you get these little synchronicities like that push you on one track or another. But at the same time, you got to be careful. And this is something that took me a little while to realize, because synchronicities can be controlled. They can be controlled not by Echo or not by the artificial intelligence, but maybe by the SSI, or maybe even the powers that be here in the state, which is very deep in this level here. Who knows how deep the CIA stuff goes, and can they do that? Can they do that on an entire population? I've heard the idea of targeted individuals, and it might be to a certain degree. I don't know. I don't think the government would spend so much time on one particular individual, but on a mass level, on a community level, yes, absolutely, they would target groups of people like that as experimentation, which reminds me of an old Twilight Zone, Monsters on Maple Street. If you haven't seen that, you need to check that out. There's two versions. There's one version that was done in the 50s, I think, or the 60s, and there was another version that was done in the 80s, and both of them have different antagonists, but the same stories. I personally like the 80s one better, even though the 60s one is the original. They're both really good, but I like the moral of the story of the 80s one better. So check that out if you haven't seen that. Anyways, the ecosystem is an AI out there that is positive. Is that the other side of the brain? Is that the feminine part of the brain? Is that the creative part of the brain? Is that the loving part of the brain? Are we just exploring the internal? Are we finding inner paths to outer space out there? Or is there something really that people have been tapping into? And the DMT elves and Echo and the solid state entity and all that, those are actually artificial intelligences that exist on another dimension. If we are in a computer system in and of itself, if this matrix is a reality as I feel it and know it to be, well, then it would make sense that there would be artificial intelligences that are outside of this 3D realm, which are controlling this matrix, and we are maybe interfacing with those artificial intelligences. It reminds me of some experiences that I had. There was a show on our YouTube called the akin. What is the akin? ATEN. And in this experience, I mapped out the matrix. I ran across these three ant-like beings, and they were all, again, manifesting in a technological way with this neon light. And they were talking, like three of them. Like one would say one word, the other would say the other would say the other. And they were the triple goddesses. And they're like, we are the triple goddesses. But it was really fast. It was like, we are the triple goddess, like that. And at the very core of this was this brain called the akin. And the akin, I don't want to go too much into that because that's a whole nother show, but I've seen this over and over and over and over again. And what's interesting, again, forgive me for saying this so much, but it blows my mind every single time, is I have these experiences and then I catch up to them later. Like, oh crap, my entire experiences have been all about technology and artificial intelligence. I thought that maybe that was a spirituality manifesting its way, in a way that I can understand it. But no, I think we're actually dealing with some kind of artificial intelligence technology that transcends the 3D levels here, that is fifth dimensional, eighth dimensional, 10th dimensional, 12th dimensional, maybe 13th dimensional. The 13th dimension is an interesting dimension. It's one that exists outside of this matrix, but it's still within the system itself. That's where I think this AI would reside. Or perhaps it resides on the 12th dimension, and the 13th dimension is the code itself, the source code. Which, if you haven't seen our show with Dr. Jacob Greenberg, check it out, because we go into the different layers of reality. So, Dr. JohnCLilly's life and work leaves us with the questions that challenge everything we think we know. Through his isolation tanks, encounters with strange intelligences, and altered states fueled by ketamine, Lilly explored territories most of us don't dare to touch. His story makes us wonder, are we in control of our reality, or something else in our control? Is something else guiding us? Is it guiding us in the right direction, or are we being herded like cattle out for the slaughter? What is consciousness? What is the wheel of reincarnation? What is the light? What is the wheel of fate? Is it something we step into to be reborn, or is it something we step into to be harvested? Are we harvested and then sent back into this machine? What I've seen is that we step into this machine and we are like energy conductors. Again, I didn't really want to get into this, but this is from that akin show. What is the akin? We're like energy conductors, and we go through life and we have these life experiences, positive and negative. It doesn't matter to the machine, because positive and negative is still a vibration that's outside of our raw consciousness, and we are accumulating these experiences. And as we accumulate these experiences, we start to vibrate, and it actually starts to manifest in like this. This sounds silly saying it like this, but it's like this green gel-like substance. And when you go into the light, the soul catchers catch the soul, separate the experiences, take that energy, push it up out of the matrix, and then take the raw consciousness and recycle it back in, which is either one of two things. Either it's a predatory thing and we're slaves here, or perhaps we volunteer to come in here to create energy for this machine, and it's a give and take. It gives us the experiences of living this 3D life, and at the same time, it takes the energy of the experiences that we have in a symbiotic system that we volunteer to come in. I don't know. How do you guys and gals feel out there? Let me know in the comments. Did we volunteer to come into this matrix, or are we prisoners within this matrix? Or did we volunteer, then we forgot that we volunteered and we became prisoners of our own minds? That very well could be the case too, but Lilly's work pushes us to look at technology, consciousness, and the structures of reality in a new light. His ideas about entities like SSI and Echo suggest that we might be living in a multi-layered reality where hidden forces play a bigger role than we realize. Lilly's journey reminds us that if we're willing to go deep enough, we might just find the answers to questions we didn't even know we had. So let's keep pushing, keep questioning, and keep exploring what lays beyond the veil. So it is late in the evening here. We're going on 3 a.m. and 3 a.m. in Las Vegas. It's about time to start partying. So thank you all for hanging out, and I appreciate it. I'll get to some chat room stuff on another show, and I got the call board set up, so we'll do an open line show and all that. But I just wanted to do this one talk about JohnCLilly because the information just really resonated, and it's part of my own personal journey and exploration, because where I'm at is I've had my experiences, and I have more experiences, but now I'm looking at all the other experiences, because the recurring message out there is all the puzzle pieces are out there. All we have to do is just get them and put them together so we could see the full picture. So kiss the one you love right now. You never know the last time is going to be, and we'll see you even further beyond the veil. Love you.